welcome back to another Pokemon TCG tabletop video. This time at Kansan again, playing another Friday Night League. I thought people would all be taking a break after NAIC, taking some time off before Worlds comes up, but nope, everyone is here. We've got over 30 people to play, and I'm just running my Poltzard list from NAIC and from the Masters Cup as well. My group and I put a lot of work into this list, and we came up with a good list, so nothing to change here, just running the same thing for the locals, and I imagine I'll be running the same thing for all my League Cups in July as well. If you were looking to cut a card or two from the deck, I think Badoo and Jamming Tower are the worst cards in the deck. Jamming Tower, not actually a particularly useful card in the current meta, however, just having a stadium bump is pretty important. You could play like an Artisan or something. And then the Badoo, I've been finding myself using it less and less and just opting for TM Evo quite often. And we're actually going to see that come up this game, right? So my opponent here in round one, we got Brian, one of the top-rated seniors from our area. Our area is actually stacked as far as our juniors and seniors go. A lot of players with their Worlds invites, and they all come out to play at Kansan, so that's pretty cool. And here, Brian's rocking Toedscruel, which I can't imagine is his usual deck. I think he actually was also on a Poltzard deck for NAIC, but here maybe trying to have a little bit of fun playing this Toedscruel deck, and I can't say I'm super experienced against it. So here, I figure that this Badoo blocks any odds of a turn one attack, right? I'm blocking Energy Switch, and that prevents me from being attacked by Toedscruel. However, the Badoo is kind of just really slow right now. I don't get any Drake Cloaks in play. Instead, I could have just gone Poffin for like Dreepy Charmander, done Evo, and then yeah, sure, maybe Brian would have gotten attack off. I don't know if I can see if he's got an E-Switch there or not. But regardless, I would probably be able to just respond right away. Maybe evolve straight into Charizard, Countercatcher up the Ogerpon, and respond immediately to that one prize knockout on my Dreepy with a 2-prize KO, and then be in a decent spot from there. But I end up going for the Badoo, and it does guarantee me one turn, so I get another turn to set up here. We get down one Dracloak with an energy. I think I end up whiffing on the second one, which is a pretty big deal as I'm very vulnerable to a potential boss's orders. Just going to go ahead and use Itchy Pollen here. And I think, yeah, that's exactly what we see. Brian finds the boss's orders and the grass energy and now takes out my Dracloak. And so by choosing Badoo, I feel like I've actually put myself in a worse position now than if I were to just Evo, let Brian attack on turn 2, which, I mean, he still might have whiffed, and then just tried to respond right away. Anyways, here we are. We're down 1 prize. We're going to be going down 2, most likely, unless we can find Rare Candy Charizard here. That would be very nice. No such luck, though. We're just going to go ahead and grab a Dracloak. Really hoping here that Brian is unable to find more boss's orders. I think he discarded one on turn 1 or turn 2, from what I remember with the research. So he's down 2, hoping he doesn't have a third boss's orders in his hand. That could be decently devastating here. I also discarded my Charmeleon, again, as a result of the Badoo, so I can't get down Charmeleon here, which feels kind of bad. It is, yes, Charizard is weak to grass, but it is also just a phenomenal attacker here. If I'm able to kind of swing the prize trade back in my favor, it's a great way to just close out the game. Of course, Brian here gets the Latias, which is actually very good for him as opposed to retreating, and now he's going to go up 2 prizes. So I would say the initiative in this game is definitely on Brian's side. He's taken the first 2 prizes. So, for example, if I were to just throw Charizards at him back to back to back, well, I would get completely owned. We'd be 4-4, and then he'd go to 2, and then I'd go to 2, and he'd just win the game. So I'm going to try to use Dragapult to maneuver in some, I'm maneuvering in a bulky Pokemon, right? I'm going to hope that Brian is unable to one-shot my Dragapult here. And then once he's unable to one-shot my Dragapult, I can continue taking 2 prizes a turn and take over the game. Additionally here, a really nice play that I kind of just thought of on the fly was with the 10 damage on the Squawkabilly, it has 150 on it. So I'm going to put, it has 150 HP, so I'm going to put 6 more on it. It's going to have 90 HP left. And then when Brian swings into my Dragapult after he hopefully misses the one-hit KO, I'm able to move 30 onto that Squawkabilly with Monkey Dory, and then Phantom Dive it for a knockout, meaning just that I'll have less pressure on me to find a lot of boss's orders. It's boss orders, a supporter card. I have 0 Dracloaks in play, so any strategy relying on a lot of boss's orders is going to be very unreliable for me here. So pretty happy to find a route that potentially involves me maybe needing 0 boss's orders, but most likely needing 1 on that final turn of the game to close it out. Here, Brian's Pheasantipede is prized, and I think that was pretty obvious to me in the moment when he nestballed here. Didn't really do too much, and then just goes ahead and swings into my Dragapult for, what is that, maybe 160 or so. And then here we're going to get exactly what we wanted. We're going to get that play onto the Squawkabilly. 200 damage is going to be going onto that Toedscruel, and I'm going to be going down to 2 prizes. So at this point, that initiative that Brian had at the start of the game, he's lost it, and now the game is kind of in my control. So I just develop my board as much as possible, get the Charizard down. I'm not worried about my Charizard dying. If it does, I have the Dragapult to close out the game. I'd love to have some amount of Dreepies here and some amount of Dracloaks, but as the game's played out, I just don't. We're going to go ahead, Night Stretcher, 1 Dreepy back. We're going to use the Hawlucha. I don't think this Hawlucha damage is particularly relevant, but I just figured there's an Area 0 in play. Might as well put it down. I have 8 bench spots, and I don't think the Hawlucha is ever costing me the game in any manner, so I don't know, maybe this extra 10 damage on the Ogerpon could be nice. It's an additional Pokemon that can die to Phantom Dive, but at the end of the day, probably doesn't really matter. And then here, really not much Brian can do. I think his best play is to just maybe Iono. Well, no, so he has to kill the Charizard here. Charizard can kill any 2-prizer on his board. Maybe his best play here would be kill Charizard. I think this Toedscruel deck plays Prime Catcher, right? So his play would be Prime Catcher, Charizard, Iono. But it looks like the Prime Catcher was prized, and he didn't have the Iono available to him either. So we're able to pick up a pretty standard game off of a weird opening setup against this pretty cool Toedscruel deck. Round 2, I'm up against an old friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Ash, who actually taught me how to play Pokemon back in the day, maybe 11 years ago, I want to say now. Yeah, that sounds about right. Them and their father, Kevin, really helped me out when I was getting into the game, so big thank you to them for that. But here, it's going to be no mercy as Ash attach passes to their Pikachu, and I'm going to get the TM Evolution play off. However, they do have a research, and they're going to be playing Terabox here. On my turn 1, I actually thought they were playing Joltik Box, which, like, now that I think about it, really doesn't fit their play style, but just based on the Pikachu attached pass, that's what I figured was incorrect there. I think my TM Evolution, I did opt to get the Charmeleon out. That was kind of because I thought they were playing Joltik Box. I think if I knew it was Terabox, I would go wider with the Dracloaks. And honestly, I think regardless, when your opponent draw attached passes, just having the draw power of your own is really valuable, right? If my opponent draw passes on turn 1, they're very likely to draw pass on turn 2, and then I can just kind of stack up my recon directives. Then I can get the Charmander going, which is a little easier to do, right? It's easier to get Charmeleon down with Dracloaks than it is to get Dracloaks with Charmeleon. Like, obviously, Charmeleon doesn't help at all. Anyways, while I was yapping, Ash had pretty much the greatest turn of all time. I don't even really know how this happened. There was a research and then a lot of basic Pokemon hitting the field in Area 0, and they're pretty much completely set up, besides the fact that they were unable to get any kind of attack off. So I am kind of dodging, especially the massive pressure of the Water Mask, Ogerpon, and Torrential Pump. Really happy to not be facing that down. My deck does not have a Shaman, and I do consider this to be one of my worst matchups without the Shaman, right? Just a turn 2 Water Pawn attack, take out 2 Dracloaks, take out, if I TM Evo, it's most likely to take out like a bad Pokemon and then a Dracloak on the bench, but still a lot of pressure, 2 prizes, and so pretty happy here to be getting kind of the head start. I think I do have the initiative here, although it's a little weird. I am going to be able to pull off some kind of 2-prize play with a Boss's Orders. I actually do also have a Counter Catcher here, so I'm debating, do I use Boss? Do I use Counter Catcher? Because quite often the answer is different, right? The question really is, am I going to be trailing the prize trade for the remainder of the game? And I think here the answer is yes. I think this Charizard is very likely to be KO'd. 1 Noctowl gets Ash. Earthen Vessel Crispin? Yeah, that gets them there. Yep. Earthen Vessel Crispin, and then my Charizard dies. Right, they go down to 3 prizes, and then, Counter Catcher is going to be very good for me, able to combo that with Iono. Whereas if I was playing against maybe something like Gardevoir or Dragapult Mirror, Grimsnarl, right, all these decks that really spread a lot of damage and can put you in some awkward spots, not taking KOs, setting up for those multi-prize turns. I talk about that a lot on the channel as I'm frequently playing. For those of you that have been watching my videos for a while, you'll remember the Regidrago videos and now the Dragapult videos. At some point, there were some Gardevoir videos too, and I feel like it's been the same game for a while here with Monkey Dory, Phantom Dive, where we're spreading damage, not taking KOs. And in those scenarios, the boss is going to be far more valuable than the counter catcher. But here, Ash playing a fairly linear deck, well, a lot of different attackers, but really just taking KOs one at a time. So with the counter catcher, very good. Again, while I was yapping, we saw a good turn from Ash. They had to use the Sparkling Crystal in order to get that Grass Mask Ogerpon attack off. Little awkward for them, but I guess it works. Additionally, something I failed to mention was that they researched away just about all their psychic energies. So you see that grass energy on the Mew EX. That's going to be a necessary attacker if they want to kill Dragapult EX. Now here, my position is a little awkward. At this point, I thought I was just winning the prize trade, but I realized if I take a 2-prize KO here, I actually open up Briar as a win condition for Ash, right? It would be kind of ridiculous. Say I were to kill like Mew EX with Phantom Dive. They could go Water Mask, Ogerpon, E-Switch, attach, Briar, Counter Catcher, take 3. Like, when I say it like that, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but I tried to play around the Briar here. Probably a mistake, because when I end up playing into, our cards like Turo, another Stadium, right? So that's actually what we are going to see is a Jamming Tower is going to come down from Ash. It's going to discard that Grass Ogerpon, and then my 4-prize turn that I'm trying to set up for here is going to be completely ruined. At this point, we had a technical difficulty. My camera ran out of memory, so we're going to have to be using some pictures to talk about what happens in the rest of the game. As I was mentioning, Ash got off a pretty wicked play here. The Mew EX copying Phantom Dive, the Jamming Tower coming down, getting rid of the Grass Ogerpon, again, ruining my 4-prize turn, and even an Iono putting me down to 4 cards. Of course, I do have 2 Dracloaks, Phesandipides in the deck, so we definitely got some stuff to work with here. We're not stranded, but I definitely was sitting on a completely bonkers hand before. I remember at the table, I started my turn off with a shuffling effect, I think a Buddy Poffin, because my hand was so good. Right on the bottom of my deck, I think I had, Fez, Research, Iono, Luminous Energy, Dragapult, all cards I really want for my big play here, which is going to be Dragapult, Luminous, Hawlucha is going to take out the Hoot Hoot. That's a 3-prize Phantom Dive onto the Mew and the Hoot Hoot. And then ideally, I get the Iono as well, which I did get the Iono here. You see this picture a little scuffed, but I did manage to get a picture of the board. There's that big play. Iono to 1, and then remove all of Ash's draw support from the board. And here, Ash does just go ahead and draw pass, at which point I just Phantom Dive for the game. So I think there was a lot of room for me to play better in this game. I think playing around the Briar was just a little silly. I should have just taken some prize cards. I think I actually potentially could have just taken a 3-prize turn there, right? I could have gone for this same Phantom Dive Hawlucha play, take out probably the Mew and a Hoot Hoot, take 3, go down to 1, then I'm denying Briar. Of course, then I'm drawing less cards off Iono, which is a little concerning, admittedly, but I think in hindsight that was probably a better route. And we'll get into our third round here up against Muhammad, who's going to be playing Gardevoir. Definitely a deck I do have a lot of practice against, unlike the Toedscruel. And honestly, Terabox, I can't say I practiced a lot against Terabox with Pultzard. When it was a little more meta and I was playing straight Pult, of course, I was very well practiced. Budu, Counter Catcher, Unfair Stamp was like the staple play, but Pultzard not particularly good at going Budu, Counter Catcher, Stamp, only 1 Budu, only 1 Night Stretcher, only 2 counter catchers, right? So it's just a little less effective. Anyways, here we go first. We start Pheasantipede. We get a Poffin. Pretty decent start, although I will say starting Pheasantipede is very, very awful in this matchup, and also pretty much any of the matchups I was mentioning before with the spread tactics, Pult Mirror, Grimsnarl. I've actually been thinking about this a decent amount. I think when you start Pheasantipede against any of these spread-based decks, Guardy, maybe not Guardy, but like definitely Pult and Grimsnarl, I think it's actually optimal to just attack with the Pheasantipede, especially with Charizard. You are able to power up the Pheasantipede a little quicker and potentially also get Luminous down on a Munkidori, and Cruel Arrow, not a bad attack. If you get your Monkey set up and then you start attacking with your Pheasantipede, that's 130 damage a turn. You're taking out Munkidoris, you're taking out, Dracloaks, Curlias, more Grims, Frostlasses, a lot of things that Pheasantipede can do, and without a boss's orders as well. But really, what attacking with the Pheasantipede would do is force your opponent to kill it, because if they just never kill your Pheasantipede, they can quite often set up for a turn where they go from 4 prizes to 0, right? Monkey onto the Fez and then knock it out, take a bunch of prizes, deny you counter catcher the whole game, deny you like unfair stamp, Iono and such. But anyways, getting back to the game here, I've got a pretty decent setup going. Energy on the Dracloak, one on the Fez for the Evo, and Muhammad did miss a turn there, just passed with 2 Curlies, 2 Monkeys, straight up draw pass, but then he does top deck the Research, a big weakness of this Gardevoir deck of Grimsnarl as well, as compared to Dragapult. They just don't have as robust of a draw engine. And here we see, I think, a little bit of a mistake from Muhammad. He's just going to go ahead, take out the Pheasantipede. I think what I would have liked to have seen is just no Mind Bend on the turn before, and then this turn, just smack into the Fez for 190, put some damage on the bench, just chill and try to go for some big play eventually where you take a lot of prizes. Because here, I have access to Unfair Stamp, I have access to Counter Catcher, which I don't actually need. I could bring back the Fez to draw more cards. Right, my Ionos are just going to hit very well for the rest of the game. That's what we see. I was using Recon before the stamp. Normally you would actually want to stamp and then Recon, kind of build up a massive hand for the next turn. But before the stamp, I had Luminous in hand, and I really wanted to get down Monkey Dory with a Luminous here, start healing some damage off my board. And of course, when I had the Luminous, I need Nest Ball, or else I just have to Unfair Stamp, get rid of the Luminous, and it's a little wasted. But we end up doing all of our recons before the stamp, we miss the Nest Ball, and then off the stamp, we just hit the Monkey Dory Luminous anyways. So a little bit of an awkward sequence, but we do get where we want it to go. Now here, no matter what, Muhammad is going to have access to Mind Bend, which is very awkward. And as you'll notice, I do have the escape board on the Charizard when the new set comes out. That will be an Air Balloon, which is going to be a huge boost for this matchup. Grimsnarl also going to be benefiting from this. The Air Balloon kind of countering out the Mind Bend, but in a way, it actually doesn't counter the Mind Bend, because if I wanted to attack with Charizard on my next turn, I don't have another Charizard to retreat into. So this is basically going to force me to either flip for the attack or retreat and Phantom Dive. Phantom Dive isn't really particularly good here. I think my ideal option here would be to Phantom Dive the Fez, potentially killing it. I think because Muhammad has so many monkeys, I don't think I'm really able to do something like, bring it up, hit it for 200, like I've been talking about, Muhammad doing that to my Fez. I don't think I'm really able to do that. He just has too many Monkey Dories. But I would love to just bring up this Fez, knock it out, and then potentially have the Charizard to knock out the Gardevoir for the game. Maybe get down a backup Charmander here, but we'll see what I'm able to get into here. Of course, also on my previous turn, I did Unfair Stamp Muhammad, and we saw him draw into Ultra Ball. He can't really afford to just Ultra Ball straight for that Gardevoir EX, so he ended up going Ultra Ball for Fez, draw some cards, get some sustainability on his board. I like that. Then he found the Guardy and this Mind Bend play. I think if he was able to do so, it would have been stronger to Mind Bend with the Monkey Dory and just not put down... Oh, no, never mind. I was going to suggest he not put down Gardevoir, but then I would just use Adrenabrain to put 30 on the Curlia and then Phantom Dive it. So definitely good to have the Gardevoir here. Force me to flip for Burning Darkness if I want to get the KO. After drawing my cards with Recon Directive, I was looking for that, Luminous Energy onto the Dracloak, Boss's Orders, bring up the Fez, take it out, take 2, without having to flip a coin, but I end up not getting there. And at this point in my turn, I'm sitting here with the Boss's Orders in my hand, kind of realizing that the play I need to go for is just Boss Guardy, flip for Burning Darkness. It never feels good to basically be coin flipping for the game. If I flip heads on this attack, I will set Muhammad back to, basically the Stone Age. He'll have 2 Monkey Dories, a Fez, and practically nothing. If I flip tails, my Charizard will be at risk. 90 damage on it means that I'm pretty sure I'm dying to double Monkey plus attack with Gardevoir EX. So I'm either losing my only viable attacker here or taking out Muhammad's only Gardevoir EX, and we do end up just flipping heads there. I did a lot of dilly-dallying during that turn, kind of just sitting there, hating the fact that I had to flip for it, but we do end up just flipping for it, and we do flip that heads. And at this point, I think the rest of this game is just about a formality. We've got some decent draw power in play in the form of the Dracloaks, and we've got a few Boss's Orders left. In order to close out the game, we're going to need to find an attacker that isn't this Charizard. Or, it can be this Charizard, but the Charizard's going to have to go to the bench and come back. At this point, my position feels so good. I don't want to be flipping again. And so on my next turn, Well, I look for the game-winning sequence, which would just be a Luminous Energy. Oh, no, I don't even look for it. Okay, I actually just decide to play a passive turn here, start out with the Iono, right? The winning sequence would have been Boss's Orders, Luminous Energy, Dragapult, Phantom Dive the Clefairy, but I decide, Muhammad doesn't have a Ralts. I don't really need to hit a crazy combo this turn. I can just afford to, Iono, draw some more cards, retreat my Charizard, build up a large hand, get rid of that confusion so that now next turn I can win the game with any Boss's Orders. Additionally, if Muhammad does bench a Ralts, then I can just potentially Phantom Dive without a boss, right? I can go like Research and then hit Phantom Dive with the Monkey, and then I can Phantom Dive into the Monkey and the Ralts here. So lots of different ways I can win the game. I think here Muhammad realizing he's going to need to just hope that I can't do that, eventually get a Gardex, and then he can maybe find a way to win the game. Now the winning sequence is just a boss, so I do go for it there. I find the boss, I kill, any of the 2 prizers, and we close out another game. This one on the back of a Monkey Dory Confusion Flip. Definitely did not feel great about that one, but that's the game, and we're going to be 3-0 now going into our 4th round, where we run into another one of these strong seniors players. Ethan here, going to be playing Grimsnarl, which I do consider to be a good matchup for this Pultzard deck. One of the biggest reasons, actually, why I ended up playing Pultzard to NAIC over straight Pult was I thought that the Charizard provided a lot of advantage into the Grimsnarl. Right at the end of the game, you play an Iono to 1, you get a Charizard EX out, and you're able to quite often just run through 2 Grimsnarls back to back in order to win the game. Now, there's a lot of planning that has to go into getting there, right? The Frosslass, the Monkey Dories. There's a lot of spread tactics that this Grimsnarl deck has that you gotta be playing around. This game, I do a full prize check. This Grimsnarl matchup is fairly tactical. I need to know, are my Charmanders in the deck? Is my Monkey Dory in the deck? How many Luminous Energies do I have in the deck? Unfair Stamp, Boss's Orders, lots of things going to be pivotal to my strategy here, but as I'm prize checking, Ethan just goes ahead, plays out his entire turn. He finds Iono, TM Evolution, and what looks like a pretty optimal turn, but if you caught a glimpse of his hand there, he actually does not have much follow-up. I think like a Rescue Board, an Energy, a Morgrim, really not much going on in that hand for him. So back onto my turn, I just continue to develop my board. Frosslass is going to be my #1 priority to take out. This Luminous Energy probably could have just gone onto my active Dreepy, but I was afraid. No, it definitely cannot go on the active Dreepy, right? Because I'm still afraid a Grimsnarl could come down, an attack could come through, and then if I lost all my energies, it'd be very bad. Because this game, I actually prized both my Charmanders, a Super Rod, a Dragapult EX, and I discarded a Dragapult EX on turn 1. So my only viable attacker in my entire deck, well, there's actually currently 0. The only way I have to attack is Night Stretcher for my 1 Dragapult EX, right? The Charizard's all useless without Charmanders, the other Dragapult, and my Super Rod in the prize cards. And so we're going to have to Night Stretcher back that Pult if we want to do anything productive. On that TN Evo, I actually opted not to go for the quadruple Dracloak setup. I could have done so, but I thought the draw power was actually a little bit excessive. I think I already have the Dragapult attack guaranteed on the following turn with like an Energy and an Arven for Night Stretcher, and I didn't want too many of my Dracloaks to build up damage from this Frosslass. So especially because I figured, Luminous Energy might have to come down onto my active Dracloak, at which point maybe it's hard for me to set up a Monkey Dory. But we do go ahead, we get down to that Monkey Dory here. And I think the play I actually end up going for here is just a Jet Headbutt. We'll see if I opt for that over the Phantom Dive. But I do consider this Jet Headbutt to be somewhat of a staple play for me against Grimsnarl, right? You pretty much always have some random damage lying around on your board from the Frosslass. So a Jet Headbutt from the Dragapult plus a ping from the Monkey Dory. Quite effective sometimes. You don't need 2 Luminous Energies to do so. You get Fire Energy on your Dragapult, a Luminous on the Monkey Dory, and you're good to go. But this time, I do opt for the Phantom Dive. I think here I just pick up on the fact that Ethan has a very weak hand, no Grimsnarl, no way to attack me, no way to apply much pressure to me at all, so I don't really need to be worrying about cleaning this damage off my board. However, he does just put down a second Monkey Dory with a second Dark, which makes my Phantom Dive feel relatively useless. Right now, I kind of wish that I just put down the Luminous on the Monkey Dory, hit the Jet Headbutt, had a bit less damage on my board. But I'm still in a good spot here as Ethan just going to bring up the Snorunt and pass the turn off to me. I did Arven for rescue board last turn, so I'm able to retreat this Dracloak back into Pult and continue attacking. Ideally here, I would also find a boss's orders, take out the Morgrim. I think that would practically lock up the game for me, because at this point, at any time, Ethan could still top deck a research, research into Grimsnarl, Countercatcher, another Dark Energy for the Monkey Dory, maybe some Frostlasses, right? This game is definitely still very losable here. I have no access to the Charizard, so my end game is pretty terrible, and I'm really just trying to run him off the board here as fast as I can. No boss's orders for me. We take out the Snorunt. That time, we do just take out the Snorunt with the Jet Headbutt. Don't give him the damage. He's got the Monkey Dories down already, and my Dracloaks are building up a decent amount of damage, so we'd love to kind of get rid of that. We're going to go ahead and thin some cards out of our deck. Iono and Budu hit in the bin at this point. We don't want to be Ionoing. Ethan's hand is bad. I'm very low on prize cards, so even if Ethan were to draw out of this, I don't think I would really be wanting Ionos. And then we do just go ahead, boss, take out the Morgrim. And I think this time we do go for the Phantom Dive because Ethan didn't get the Dark Energy down on the previous turn. But I think I have enough damage on the board here. Maybe even after his monkeys, he's going to have some damage. And I'm just going to go ahead, boss. I think boss, monkey, Phantom Dive was going to close that one out there at the end. And Ethan's just going to go ahead, pack it up. And that's going to be our round 4. Not particularly interesting, but definitely a scary game for me, as if Ethan did have a viable setup, I had no Charmanders, and it would have been very, very problematic. Getting into the last round here, I guess someone bumped the camera. It was probably me, to be honest. So we got a little bit of a wonky view here. Sorry for that, guys. But we're up against our buddy Tony, another regular of the Kansan Night Leagues, and honestly, my local League Cups as well. I swear to God, I play against this guy every time at the League Cups. I think maybe 3 times in the finals we've played. And in that format, we were both playing Guardy right back when we had the Refinement Curlia. But now he's still playing Guardy. I've moved on using the Recon Directive nowadays. So going to be somewhat of an unfavorable matchup, although I do feel fairly confident. I don't think it's any worse than, maybe a 40-60 or something like that. I think I'm doing pretty okay here. It is going to be a little bit of a more lax game between Tony and I. You saw me just pick up my prize cards and look at them. I don't know if Tony ends up doing the same or not. Looks like he's just going to not bother. I definitely told him he could. Maybe just getting a little lazy here. Oh, he's actually prize checking. Oh, I feel a little bad. Oh, there we go. Okay, now he's just going to go ahead, pick him up like I did. Casual Friday Night League. Don't need to be spending a minute and a half doing our prize check against each other. We can just go ahead and look at them. But while I'm yapping, this has been a crazy turn for Tony. I think that's 5 Psychic Energies in the discard, a Secret Box, and a TM Evo comes down, and only one Curlia comes down, basically announcing to me with a megaphone that his other Curlia is prized, or potentially in his hand. Could be in his hand as well. I've had that happen to me with Gardevoir, especially with only 2 Curlias. This happens pretty often, and it is relatively annoying. Now for me, this is going to be a rough game when Tony has such a strong start like this. 5 energies in the discard, Artisan in play, Curlia on the board, 1 Gardevoir EX comes out next turn, Artisan finds the Screamtail, and my Charmander is dead. And quite often what happens in games like this when Gardevoir has such an explosive start, Charmeleon gets knocked out, and then I put down a Charmander, Charmander gets knocked out, and you just never end up establishing a Charizard, which is not where you want to be in this matchup. You want to be getting down the Charizard before Gardevoir has the chance to attack with the Screamtail. You don't even have to actually attack with the Charizard if you don't have like a strong... You wouldn't want to, for example, kill Shaman with Charizard. That's pretty underwhelming. But you want to make the Charizard, have it on your bench. It can just chill there. It's got Terra, can't be sniped out by the Screamtail. And that's kind of what you're looking to do here. But at least I am able to kind of set up a double threat here. I do put 2 energies onto my Dracloak, anticipating that my Charmeleon is going to be the victim of Tony's attack. I debate swinging into this Shaman, and ultimately I do decide to do it. I think it's like a little questionable. Of course, because of Monkey Dory, Tony gets some extra damage to work with here. But kind of the crucial thing I was going for here is that if Tony Screamtails my Charmeleon, this Shaman has damage on it, which allows me to Phantom Dive it, right? So now I can Phantom Dive into the Screamtail and the Shaman, take a 2 prize turn, and look for some kind of 2/2/2 prize map. Maybe I get down a Charmander this turn, and then I rare candy it into a Charizard, kill the Guardy. You guys can kind of see the vision there. Arsen's going to go ahead, get down the Charmander, and at this point, I think I forgot to mention, on turn 1, I Ultra Balled away a Counter Catcher. Now, usually Counter Catcher, not super important against Guardy. You want to be playing Boss's Orders, but when the game plans out like this, right, the Screamtail aggressively continues taking out your Charmanders, you really do need those Counter Catchers. So discarding that Counter Catcher on turn 1 really hurts. I think my other options on my turn 1 Ultra Ball were like Super Rod, Night Stretcher, Boss's Orders, something like that. And right, like Boss's Orders, usually pretty important. I think it was a mistake, though. I think when I see Tony discard 5 Psychic Energies, get the Curlia down, I should have been able to see this kind of board state coming where I'm on the back foot, and I really would have appreciated some more counter catchers this game. I used my only one to take out this Monkey Dory here. Definitely a more valuable target than the Shaman. Although now, because I did this, the damage on the Shaman feels kind of useless. So I think it's like a hindsight moment where, because I got the counter catcher and I was able to kill the monkey, now I wish that I didn't attack into the Shaman. But if I didn't get the counter catcher, I would have been pretty happy to have the damage on the Shaman. So I think I made the right play and it just didn't work out. And then at this point, the one other crucial thing that I missed was the unfair stamp. And so we get completely owned here by the Mew EX copying Phantom Dive. Monkey Dory is going to put 30 damage onto my bench Stray Cloak. Oh, he's actually going to go for the Charmander. Yeah, that's actually even better. But he's going to take a 3-prize turn here. So I mentioned I was trying to have him take 1 prize, and I was going to go 2-2-2. Well, now he's just going to go 1-3-2, and now he's kind of taken back the prize lead, and I am in dire straits, especially because I have no counter catchers. And especially because I actually forget that I have no counter catchers here. So the plan that I cook up is that this turn, I'm going to put down a Charmander. I'm going to pass the turn. Or actually, I forgot how much of a disaster this turn was. I'm actually going to try and TM Evolution this turn with Jamming Tower in play. But passing is going to be just as fine. The idea is I put down a Charmander, I pass. Tony's bench locked out of Screamtail. He's bench locked out of just about anything here. So he's going to have to attack me with something, Gardevoir, Clefairy. And then I'm going to use the Charizard, right? So I'll have Charmander. He can't kill it. I rare candy the Charizard. I bring up the Mew EX. I Iono Tony to 1, and I kill it. And if I had a counter catcher, I think this actually might be a winning position for me. Because if I think about it, his odds off of Iono to 1 are going to be terrible, right? I would take out his only draw support in the Mew EX. I would put him to 1 card. You know what? He would probably Mind Bend me. That could be annoying. Maybe I would have to additionally flip for the game-winning Burning Darkness after that if I was unable to retreat and make another Pult or something. But I think that actually would have been quite a good line. Unfortunately, I have no counter catchers left. And so I can't actually Iono and counter catcher in the same turn. So, I mean, that turn I Iono'd. Next turn, I'd have to boss. My other option that I could have gone for, which is a little worse, is I could kill the Clefairy with Dragapult EX. Right? The idea being that if I kill the Clefairy, is that viable? Oh yeah, I think that's viable, right? I take out the Clefairy, maybe I toss in an Iono. I hope Tony doesn't find a Night Stretcher. But in that situation, Tony would get some extra cards from the Mew EX draws, and so my odds would be significantly worse with the Dragapult attack than with the Charizard. So I end up going for the Charizard. Tony, smart player, not going to attack with the Mew EX again, realizing that if I kill it with the Charizard, he could be in rough shape. Going to go in with the Clefairy instead. And then here, I go for the play. I start my turn off with Iono. If I knew I had no counter catchers left, I wouldn't have gone for this Iono. I would have just tried to play Boss's Orders this turn, take out the Mew, just don't hand disrupt, and hope that Tony doesn't really have much going on in his hand. But I play the Iono with the counter catcher, because there's no counter catchers in the deck, and then realize that I'm completely screwed. If I knock out the Clefairy, Mew EX comes in and closes out the game. If I were to pass here, I think I would just end up in the exact same position next turn where I can't Iono and Gus in the same turn. So I just go ahead, pack it up, and we're going to go 4-1 at this locals with Pulsard. Definitely got some interesting games in, played a little sloppy, but that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, learned something as usual, and I'll see you guys in the next one.